Hi you guys, it's Charlie Tango 1994 back with another YouTube video. Now, one of the questions that often gets asked when talking about CB radio is what sort of range can you get? And to be honest, it's not a straightforward answer. CB radio was developed over 40 years ago for short range communications. It operates on a low frequency and the legal limit for all FM CB radio is just 4 watts. The other thing with CB is it usually involves a big long aerial on your vehicle or rigged up on a mast on the roof of your house. It's also critical to tune your antenna to make sure the maximum power from the radio can be transmitted. As well as the amount of power you're able to output, the other critical aspect is what range you're likely to achieve is your location, more specifically your relative height. If you're down in a valley, you won't get as good a range as if you're up in a hill. Also, if you're in a built-up area surrounded by buildings, you won't get as good a range as if you're in an open area like a park. The other limiting factor is about the amount of power you can transmit. All legal CB radios are limited to 4 watts. Since CB radio was developed for short-range communications and is at a relatively low frequency, they are limited by the amount of power they can produce. This is also to help the risk of interference with other radio and television equipment, which may be in the local area. At least that was true in the 1980s. There are other types of radio equipment, most noticeably SSB radios, which can legally produce 12 watts and hence have an increased range when compared to short standard CB rigs. With all radio transmissions, we must consider aerials being in line of sight to be able to communicate with each other. So the importance of getting up to higher ground, since this increases the amount of sky you can see, relates to how many successful communications you're able to achieve. The size and type of antenna used are also critical to the range of your signals, as well as how correctly tuned the aerial is. So the basic rule is, the bigger the aerial, the better the range you can achieve. There are other conditions which dramatically affect the range of signals you are able to send and receive. These are broadly known as skip conditions and are highly variable and therefore difficult to predict when you will start to receive signals from a particular part of the world. This really is the basic interest in all types of radio. The ambition to be able to send a readable signal to some remote distant part of the world. So in real terms, what types of range would you expect? With a handheld or walkie-talkie, although very portable, it would generally have a very small aerial and therefore have a much reduced range. Range would be affected by being inside a building or in a built-up area, and particularly from inside a car. Up on high ground in open areas, the expected range could be much further, but the expected range for a walkie-talkie is probably about 1 to 3 miles. Mobile aerials tend to be the preferred choice for many, since they're attached to a vehicle and are highly portable. Deliberately driving up to high ground in a car without making any other changes to a standard mobile setup can produce very good results. Mobile aerials tend to be kept to a particular height to prevent issues when driving, so although a reasonable size, lacks the overall size of a Homebase aerial. The expected range for a mobile aerial is probably about 5 to 15 miles. Homebase aerials tend to be much larger than their mobile counterparts, but require a sturdy location, preferably at an elevated height, to be truly effective. As these tend to be a more static setup, the physical location of the aerial will play an important part in the range achieved by a Homebase aerial. Many CB users add burners to a Homebase setup to improve the normal range of their aerial. But the expected range for a Homebase aerial is probably 5 to 25 miles. Now for the guys who really take things to the extreme, there's a favourite type of aerial for really long distance radio communication, especially amongst those who love to get on top of mountain tops with a portable setup. The benefit of these types of portable aerials are that they usually can be homemade and therefore extremely cheap to produce. They're highly flexible and therefore extremely portable and can be packed away into very small spaces. The major part of these types of flexible aerials is the mast or poles, which are needed to elevate them appropriately. That said, for the guys who do venture up on seriously high ground with portable rigs and battery packs, the rewards are high. In the right conditions, ranges of over 100 miles are regularly recorded. But the expected range for a portable aerial is probably 15 to 85 miles, which is still very impressive.